Within about a year, Paul writes a second letter to the church in Thessalonica. So it's the second Thessalonians. The church is still being heavily persecuted, and so he wants to encourage them again to stay faithful. And he reminds them that even though as they're persecuting them and thereby persecuting Christ, not to seek vengeance, not to seek revenge, not to hate them. And he reminds them that God one day will repay unbelievers with vengeance and everlasting destruction. So don't worry about that. Our job is to love. And he praises them for their faith and fruit that he says is most shown by the love that they have for one another. And he says he's very proud of them for having such unity within the church. And this is not referring to how much you love people you love. This is how you can love everybody in the church and bring unity. Because if we don't have that within the church, we cannot be effective in ministering to outside the church because we become hypocrites. And he also talks about that it's not fitting for Christians to be seen as lazy or living off others. He reminds them that when he was there, they worked for their own food and they weren't a burden for them in any way. And that's another important part of both showing love when you go ministering to people, talking to people, dealing with people, or going as a missionary, that we don't be a burden, but that we make our visit effortless, and that they can't blame us for anything. And maybe as an application in modern times, that's like when we're sharing our faith, if at the same time the person is watching our life and we're doing anything illegal, using an illegal substance, or we work under the table, we run a shady business, or we live off the government unjustly, that the person will judge the gospel, what you're trying to share with them, and view us as hypocrites. And in the second book of Thessalonians, he also gives them another clue to the end times. It talks about that the day of Christ's return will not come until the man of sin proclaims himself as God in a temple. So some representation, and maybe it's all of us, maybe it's one person, I don't know what it's going to look like or when, but the man of sin, which is, well, all of us, but it's the ones that are not ashamed of it, that doesn't repent from it, they will proclaim themselves as God, and even in some form of a temple, and that will be close to Christ's return when he needs to come, because then we have really lost it.